This episode of Mikey on Mute is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Dubby is a clean energy drink loaded with vitamins and nootropics. Dubby is sugar-free, has 0 calories, and 0 artificial coloring. Use promo code MikeyOnMute to save 10% on your order at dubby.gg. That's dubby.gg. And remember, promo code MikeyOnMute, all one word, will save you 10%. Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting episode of Mikey on Mute. I am your host as always, Mikey, coming off mute to share part of my story of mental health battles and also to open up that conversation with you. Today is episode 6. Tell me I'm worthy, please. I hope you all enjoyed episode 5 when I talked about my staying inpatient. I know that can be a little triggering for some people, so if you couldn't make it through the episode, I totally understand. Welcome back to this one. It's going to be less triggering on my side, so hopefully less triggering on your side. Today we're talking about external validation. Per PsychCentral.com, external validation is the acknowledgement of your strengths and emotions from others. Validation is a common need that most of us experience. It feels good to have validation. It feels good to be told that what we are feeling or experiencing or doing is correct. It's a human need to have validation. However, too much or too little of anything is not good, and the same thing applies with validation. So, when therapists and psychiatrists and researchers look at this, they kind of tie it back a lot to childhood, just like a lot of other things with mental health. Because if you seek too much validation as an adult, if you are constantly seeking that external validation, it may be because you either had too little or an extreme amount of validation as a child. It could have gone either way. This can affect how you manage and process your emotions and may shape your personality, and it can even influence your attachment style. Attachment style is something that's highly talked about, tied to mental illness, especially with things like anxiety, borderline personality disorder, and so many other things. If you are growing up not feeling valued or receiving that validation that you deserve or need in your life, because please understand that even though you were a child, your needs are still valid. You need those provided, that validation provided to you. It's a human right, even for a child. So, if you're not getting that as a child, it can really mess up how you regulate your emotions into your adulthood. If you're not getting enough of that validation, it can throw off how you process things. This can really change how you go about life, and it may come up as difficulty trusting others. It could be, unpredictable or confusing behaviors. You're not sure why you're acting this way or have no logical reasoning behind it. And it can even lead to conditions like BPD, like borderline personality disorder, which we will talk about a little bit more at a later point. On the flip side of things, if you are growing up being over-validated, gaining too much validation from your family, your friends, those around you that you surround yourself with, this can really bring up a difficulty in interpersonal relationships as you do get older. You see these people usually have a sense of entitlement They have some sort of value already built up in themselves, which normally is great to have that value inside yourself. But when you feel entitled and have a privilege and think that you are above others, that may be a result of gaining too much validation as a child. That, as a parent, speaks to me in so many ways. It's so strange. Like, you want to make sure you are providing that validation for your kids, but now we have to worry about not over-validating them. We don't want them to have a sense of entitlement, because sometimes if you over-validate a child and they do have that sense of entitlement, you can see it lead to things that have like narcissistic tendencies. You don't want them to have behaviors that are that of a narcissist. So it's really a fine line to toe, whether you are a parent, child, teenager, anywhere in between. I don't have some magical answer on how to, what's the right amount of validation. I think that's a personal question for everybody. It's going to vary based on what you need, what you needed. And I would suggest talking to your therapist about it. I know I've had to talk to mine a few times about my attachment style and how that's influencing me. We're working a lot on internal validation. How can we give me that validation I need from the inside and not seek it from outside sources? That goes along with my work I need to do with self-compassion, self-esteem, being nicer to myself. So this all kind of wraps together. At least for me, it speaks loudly. Now that we talked a little bit about what external validation looks like and where it could come from, again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a researcher. This is just me talking. Please continue to do research. Ask questions of others, your therapist, credible sources online. Make sure you do your research. But now that we've talked a little bit about what it looks like and could come from, I want to explain some external validation from my story. So tie it all kind of back in. We're still on that journey, walking through some highlights of my mental health journey that got us this far. After episode 5, we leave inpatient treatment. It was, like I said, inpatient wound up being one of the best and one of the worst things to ever happen to me. However, it provided a lot of other kind of avenues that it could go down. Almost like a false sense of reassurance to myself that, hey, I went through inpatient, everything's good. Not the case. But when I did leave inpatient, I was looking to surround myself with a community, with people that could support me, provide me with guidance, challenge me to grow, push me in the right direction, and be honest with me. When I looked for all of that stuff, I instead found TikTok. This was 2020, so 4 years ago, TikTok was a different place than it is now. I was in a much different place than I am now. I even had a good discussion with my wife earlier about what it's going to look like me on TikTok going forward, from back then to now. And so it's really interesting to see. But when I was looking for this group of support, TikTok wound up being an interesting turning point for me. Originally, I was going to use the platform as sort of a video journal. I wanted to take the words that were in my head and put them physically somewhere, just speaking them out loud to try to kind of clear that overload that they sit in there with. My brain operates at such a fast speed, and it's trying to go down every possible path. It's trying to figure out how to fix every solution in front of me. It's trying to understand how to act. It's reading body language to try to, I guess, mask and be what I can be to not upset the other person, whoever I'm around, whether that's a single person or a group of people. It has this desire to watch their body language and then try to, I guess, come up with, what are like 7 different possible things that they could say or could happen, and how am I going to react to those situations if they do come up, so that way these people don't think I'm weird and that I still fit in. It's mentally and physically exhausting existing inside my own head. Again, this is my own experience. I can't speak for others, but I know that there are others out there that it feels very, very exhausting to be in your own head. And I want you to know that it's okay, it's valid to feel that way, that you're not alone. There are other people out there that struggle with this. And it can be something that really is hard for us to put into words, because we don't understand it even, how it's happening. But it's going so fast in so many directions that we don't know what's going to come out of our mouths. So I wanted to use TikTok as a platform to be able to, I guess, slow down my mind. If I can speak it out into existence onto video, then perhaps it will help me focus on that one thought, help me process and be able to, take it back to my therapist and go, hey, this is kind of what happened when I spoke it out loud and got it out of my head. Did I pick it apart too much? And we could go from there. Something got in the way of me doing a video journal on TikTok. I tried to do the right thing and have it just be that. But the comments, they made me feel good. It was a boost of serotonin. I noticed trends. Our brains love trends and patterns. So seeing the trends online on TikTok, and I want to do that. I want to make a video like that. Then seeing these transitions, oh my goodness, how do I do that? That transition is cool. And it gave me something to hyper focus on. And suddenly my brain jumped from video journal to TikTok star, not really star. Just a person that was seeing trends, wanted to fit in, and thought that this was the way to a safe community, was to do these trends, try to fit in, learn the transitions, be cool, and that's kind of where my mind was at that point. Doing this brought me to a certain part of it, as we have talked about just in general, not particularly on the podcast, but as people. We talk about the algorithm a lot. What brings you certain things with the algorithm? If you like certain content that has a certain keyword or hashtag, and you consistently like things that are similar to that, it'll bring you videos that it thinks it wants you to see. So if you like certain trends, it's going to bring you those videos. If you are watching cooking videos all the way through and reacting to them and commenting, the algorithm wants to bring you more cooking videos. Seems to make sense. It's logical. The things that I was liking on TikTok, though, were not cooking videos. I was not liking, these home videos of digging holes and making things out of dirt and all of that. No, what I was liking was the darker side of the internet, the darker side of TikTok. If you want to put it into terms of what TikTok is kind of like today, it's probably more what they call like book talk, which is that spicier audiobook things. Back then, we had phrased it as kink talk, which was kind of like BDSM thirst traps. People that were really into the dynamic of the BDSM world. And so we created, it was already there, but I got invested in kink talk, the thirst traps, the videos, the trends, all of it. The algorithm, my entire feed became Kink Talk. And I met some certain people that kept popping up on my page. And we were able to like and comment back and forth and create this kind of bond. And suddenly I found myself talking to these people on a regular basis through the internet. We became kind of a TikTok family, if you will. And I'm going to put family in quotes because these people were not my family. They were strangers on the internet, which can be great. Those connections can definitely turn into something authentic. But at this point in my life and that group of people, I was joining just to fit in. I wasn't joining because they made me feel safe. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to do what they did. And it seemed best to join them. So I joined this sort of Kink Talk family of creators. That also came with some major flirtation and investment in kind of like a online dynamic, if you will, with someone from a different state. It seemed safe for me to be online and flirting with somebody that was states away. I could put my, people skills into play, see if I could still flirt, if I could have those conversations without any real consequences at the time, because I thought, hey, I'll never see this person, so I can talk to them. And I was talking myself into it. I was giving myself excuses that it was okay to do these things, that it was helping me somehow. Joining this family and meeting this person, it really shaped the kind of content I made. I made the content they wanted to make. I did the trends that they wanted to do. I presented myself how they wanted me to present myself. More than just a hashtag of whatever the family name was, I became a version of myself that was whatever they thought I should be. And it worked. I had a few thousand followers at one point, and it made me feel good to see the comments, the reactions, everything. It filled me with happiness and serotonin. And I was getting this bonding moment with this person from another state. We had this online dynamic, this online relationship. And it seemed so real, as in, it felt like being heard and seen. And it felt validating. It felt like I was doing the right thing. I had gotten out of inpatient, and now I'm finding a community. And I am presenting myself as what I thought was my authentic self, but it just turned into another version of me that others influenced. I was so desperate to feel accepted that I attached without question. Latched on to this person, to this group. Didn't even think about it. I just, they showered me with compliments. They made me feel like I was everything they ever wanted, that they ever craved. They truly told me that I was the complete opposite of what their ex-husband was. That phrasing hit me kind of like a brick, but it was the same thing that I thought when I first got separated. While I was going through my divorce, I was looking for somebody that was a complete 180 from what my ex-wife was. And so this phrasing from this person in another state hit me, and I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I don't know if we trauma bonded, or it felt like that little phrase cemented any, it erased any concern and cemented that this was supposed to happen in my head. In typical Mikey fashion, I jumped in headfirst to this relationship, if you will. It was a relationship. There is no if you will. but I jumped headfirst in. There was no concern, no safety vest, anything, just right into the water. I flew out to meet this person, flew out to a whole different state, a state I've never been to, on blind faith that they were going to be there and pick me up and I'd be safe. There was no concern in my head. It just made sense. Yeah, fly out, meet this person. You have this amazing connection online. The next logical step was to meet them in person. Right? Right. I trauma bond with this person in person. We are at a point where we're already discussing a future together that neither of us know. Like, we know that neither of us can hold up our end of the bargain on this, but it's fun to talk about. What would we do? What does the future look like for us as this magical couple that just sprang out of nowhere on the internet? It was nice to ignore reality for a couple days. It was nice to not worry about the things that were normally bothering me in life because I was in a different state. I was with somebody that cared about me, or told me they cared about me at least. And I felt wanted. I felt on top of the world. I had them telling me all of these things. I had people online commenting about how amazing I am, whether it was on my looks or my transitions or my content. It was just this flood of support, and I kept reaching because it felt good. It felt like I needed it in a way that I can imagine, like needing a certain type of substance. We did this relationship for a couple of months, and I think we reached a point where it was not enough attention or validation for either one of us. We both were suffering our own journeys and battles with mental illness. They were battling with their divorce happening. I was battling with trying to figure out the best way to go about learning who I am. And I really think, once it got to a point where we were getting jealous over if someone got comments from a certain person or, a certain gender of it was one of those ridiculous things that you're like, oh my gosh, how dare this person comment on their stuff? It's a public platform there for basically for commenting and liking. That's what it's there for. And so we were getting irrationally upset over these things. We were getting mad at each other because we couldn't follow through with the things that we were dreaming of with this grand future that we had. We couldn't move states immediately. We couldn't, make this life happen within 2 months. And so, of course, that means it's all just thrown out the window, right? So when trying to talk to them and set boundaries and explain my concerns, all while balancing trying to find that serotonin again of external validation, whether that's reading through the comments or talking to other people in this TikTok group and family that I had made, maybe being flirtatious with some extra people, it got to a point where when I tried to talk to this person and explain to them that I think we were doing the wrong thing being in this relationship, instead of talking back, they blocked me. No word. They blocked me on text. They blocked me on TikTok. They blocked me on any way that we were messaging each other. And I felt a really big hole. One that I wasn't expecting for something that was a very quick couple month thing. And it felt as fiery and as headfirst as we jumped in. That's how hard it ripped that Band-Aid off and felt when that blocking happened. And I was mad. I was angry. And I didn't know how to process that. I was upset because I needed some kind of closure, I kept saying. And it was really just a spiral of another person left me. I wasn't good enough. All those negative thoughts that I had been dealing with for life came rushing back. If I felt good about myself at all through this validation process, that was gone. It was back to complete self-critic, whether that's the inner critic or just how my negative thoughts work. And I couldn't figure out what to do. I thought I needed this kind of closure, and I'll find out later in life that closure isn't always what you need. Sometimes not getting that closure that you're expecting or wanting is actually the better way to go about processing those things. However, this hindsight is 2020 thing didn't hit me at that point. That's not how I was thinking, and so it's nice to look back on, and I can logically say that, but at the time, wasn't quite thinking that. So what's my solution? I can't get closure. What is my solution? And my solution at that time is to start posting more. One, maybe if I post more, things will get to her, and there'll be some way to trigger an emotion to get her to talk to me. I started posting racier and racier content on this Kink Talk, things that were edgy, and pushing the envelope to a point where I got deactivated or banned, went against some community guideline, or got reported for something. I never did anything that I was aware was against guidelines, but obviously something, and I wasn't thinking, so who knows. But at some point I got removed from that, and that was kind of like a slap in the face. Like, this community that I found after getting out of inpatient, this online community that was filling me with serotonin, now was gone just as quickly as that online relationship was. And so I am out of a relationship that I don't have any closure on, banned from the platform that I was making friends in a community on. And I use friends very loosely. These were acquaintances at best. And I had to kind of put the phone down, turn around, and realize that what I've been trying to avoid is the real world. Whether that was what I did prior to going into inpatient to try to mask that, or what I did after inpatient with this major example of external validation. I was really trying to avoid the real world, and while this is not the only example of external validation in my life, it's one of the biggest, and it was a really important time in my life for me to experience that. Just because it was negative doesn't mean it wasn't important to experience. And that's been hard for me to learn too, that the things that are important to your life don't always have to be the sunshine and rainbows things. It can be those hard lessons, those moments that really change everything. And so now I am off of this platform, unsure what to do or how a relationship is supposed to work, because clearly at this point I don't know how anything is supposed to work. I can't process it, so I just have to kind of look and turn around and do the one thing I know how to do best, and that's go back on mute, go back to isolating, back to myself. Before we go any further down this journey, I want to thank everybody for listening, for going through this with me. I appreciate you more than words can even say. So please, if you're listening on Spotify, give this a 5-star rating. Share it with some friends and family that you might think would benefit from hearing it. We're getting closer to the moment of me being able to have some two-way conversations and bring you guys in and talk about everyone else's battles and how we can break that stigma that, talking about is taboo or reaching out for help is bad. So I'm so excited to get closer and closer to being able to have these conversations with you. I want to thank you also for getting through these episodes with me. I know sometimes I can ramble. Sometimes I'm going to kind of go off on tangents or maybe repeat myself, please understand that these sessions, as much as I'm glad you enjoy them, are really here to help me tell my story and fill in some blanks that have been in my head for a while. I'm hoping that by telling my story, I'll be able to remember some things that are blocked away in that imaginary, file cabinet that I've talked about that's in the back of my head. Maybe the more I talk about these things, the looser that drawer comes. And it's going to help me and hopefully helps you. If any of this resonates with you, that's great. If I can get one person to listen, one person to understand or hear me, and it helps them, that's all I need. Before I give you some kind of TED Talk, this is Mikey going back on mute. This episode of Mikey on Mute is brought to you by Little Jerk Society. Little Jerk Society is a clothing company fueled by the raw energy of creative rebellion, celebrating those who march to the beat of their own drum. They care deeply about mental health and believe in a world where everyone can thrive, regardless of their challenges. Use promo code MikeyOnMute to save 15% on your order at littlejerkclothing.com. Again, that's littlejerkclothing.com. And remember, use promo code MikeyOnMute, all one word, to save yourself 15%. Go off and make a change.